Hi. Section 2 of Chapter 1 tends to be a little bit of a difficult chapter or part of the section because we're going to learn about a lot of different types of governments. Everything from democracy, which is ruled by many, to a dictatorship, which is ruled by one, which is also a monarchy. When there's none, that's anarchy. And when it's ruled by few, it's oligarchy. And we got a lot of archies and all kinds of things. So we're going to try to take this as slow as possible. So the first type of government that we're going to talk about is a chart in front of you that is a constitutional government. So if you'll take that chart out for just a minute, and we're going to fill that part in today. The thing about a constitutional government is that it places limits on the government. If your constitution, if the country has a constitution and it doesn't place limits on the government, then it is not a true constitutional government. So for example, China has a constitution, but because the government can do anything that it wants to do, it is not a constitutional government. In the case of the United States, we have a constitution that our government is bound by. In fact, we are in this election year hearing that left and right about listening or not listening to the Constitution, depending on who you're listening to. So what are the purposes of a Constitution? Well, one of its first purposes is that it sets out ideals that those are bound to believe in and share. So I have written above it the idea of the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the protection that the Bill of Rights is the protection that we have set out by the Constitution to protect things like our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion, our freedom of the right to bear arms, the right to have an attorney, the right to a jury. All of those are outlined in our Constitution because those are the ideas and values that all of us that call ourselves Americans, we believe in them and we share them and we think that they are fundamental to who we are. A second purpose of a constitution is to establish the structure a government has. So the three branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, and what powers that they have, and what powers does the national government have versus what powers the states have. And speaking of the national government, it is the idea that it is the supreme law of the land. As you can see written here, it is Article 6, or the idea that Article 6 gives our country, our federal government, the authority to be the supreme law of the land. They are sovereign. Here is a sample of a video that answers the question, what is a constitution? I'm going to stop it about in the middle because it's going to describe things the way the Constitution is in Great Britain. But because it does such a great job of explaining what the general idea of a constitution is, I thought we could look at part of it.
Okay, so before we talk about what a constitution is, let's first explain why we need one. Let's start by looking at the fundamental things we all need as human beings. These are a voice in the decisions that affect our lives, material well-being such as food, shelter, and education, security and protection from violence or discrimination, and recognition and respect as individuals and communities. To help meet these needs, people create governments and delegate powers to them to exercise for the common good of society. The problem, though, is that while governments need powers to perform their functions, history tells us again and again that power without limits can lead to corruption, dictatorship, and oppression. Free, fair, and regular elections might help ensure good government. They allow people to select who they want in power, and over time, to vote out those who perform badly. But we also need some basic rules to control how that power is used, so that those who win elections still have to respect your rights and promote your interests, rather than using power for their own benefit. Just as in a game of football, there have to be rules and a referee. So in a democracy, there must be rules by which all the players are bound. These rules are provided in a constitution. The constitution is a law, but it's not just an ordinary law. A constitution is a supreme law that establishes, organizes, and empowers the government and determines how other laws are made and implemented. It is also more difficult to change than ordinary laws, so that those in power cannot make up the rules as they go along. Football wouldn't be fair if the winning team could change the rules, and democracy isn't fair if those in power can just change the constitution according to their own whim. The constitution harnesses the energy and power of the state, ensuring that the people control the reins. This explains why when people are trying to establish a new, fairer society, one of the first things they do is write a new constitution. This is what Norway did in 1814, India in 1950, South Africa in 1996, and Colombia in 1991. Indeed, nearly all countries in the world have a constitution to establish rules for using power. On the other hand, we've seen that when a democratic government is illegally overthrown, one of the first things the coup leaders do is set their sights on destroying the constitution. They don't want any inconvenient limit on their ability to rule by force.
So, in a nutshell, a constitution, whether it's an American constitution, a British constitution, an Indian constitution, it's going to set out the ideals that the people believe in. It's going to put together the structure that the government's going to have, and it's going to define its power. And ultimately, the Constitution identifies that the national government is the supreme law of the land. Now, your constitution, a country's constitution, does not have to be a written constitution. It could easily be an unwritten constitution. For example, Great Britain has a compilation of many documents, 3 specific documents: the Magna Carta, the English Bill of Rights, and the Proclamation of Rights, I believe it's called. And so they don't have just one document like the countries of the United States, France, India, Italy, and Switzerland. We have, as these other countries do, have a written example. We can go and we can take a look at it. Okay. So looking a little bit further down, what are the types of constitutions, but what does it do? For example, the framework of the Constitution sets out, framework of the government, I'm sorry. What does it do? It sets out the plan of how the 3 branches work, how the national and the state government has a relationship. How do you actually change the Constitution if you're not happy with it? And if you really stop and think about it, the United States government has not changed its Constitution that much. The first 12 constitutional amendments came very, very quickly. 3 came during the Civil War. So that's 13 that kind of came in a flourish, and we only have 27 of them. Because it's the highest law, what it does is it states that these are the limits and extents of the government power and the rights of a citizen. You'll see an example here of the habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is the rule that the government cannot hold you without charging you. So, for example, if the government decides to arrest Mr. Rang for whatever reason, they can only hold him for 48 hours without charging him with a crime. Now, if they think he's a terrorist, they don't have to wait the 48 hours. They just send him off to Guantanamo. But a writ of habeas corpus is a document that your lawyer fills out to say you need to be charged or you need to be let go. That limits the government from doing whatever, arresting people for no whatever reason. In the center box, we're going to talk about the preamble of the Constitution. The preamble is the famous one sentence that opens our country's Constitution. It is called "We the People." We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. If you turn your worksheet over, you'll notice that the phrases of the We the People are explained in detail. Please read this for Monday because we will be using the preamble for an activity that we're going to do for Constitution Day, which is September 16th. Okay? Have a good day, and we'll see you later.